For this project, the requirements were the website needed to be set up in a WordPress. The website didn't require the theme or template to be custom. The website required to have some custom design created in Illustrator or Photoshop for the client to approve. And this design used client's colors, logo, and other content type that was related to the client's business, like artists pages that should have news, events page, and design should be responsive. It should work well in smartphones, tablets, laptops, desktops, small devices, medium, large. This is how website looks on Chrome simulator on different devices. So this is iPhone. This is iPad. This is iPad Pro. This is a laptop with MDPI screens. And this is the desktop view widescreen. There's some features that are different between mobile version or small screen size compared to the desktop or widescreen, and I will go a little bit more shortly. And so how I have set up here is I have my local machine, local host, and I have it on staging, accessible on internet for client review. And then there is also a live or production site to be used for the for the users, clients. So originally this design is so this is Illustrator file for the design, and this is a desktop view, and there is also mobile view, and has all the pages to show to the client and approve the designs. This is how artist page looked. And this is how artist page looks once it's set up in the WordPress. And there's a hover state, about page, Here's the events page. This event page shows, and there's a mobile version as well, and that's how mobile looks. And usually I actually create multiple artboards. For that project there was just two versions, mobile and desktop, of smartphone small screen and desktop large screen. In general I create a file, Photoshop or Illustrator, where I have different versions of the screen, starting from small, medium large, large, extra large. For example, for this example it has only 5 versions. Sometimes I have 6, maybe sometimes 4. It kind of depends on the project and requirements, and usually I have all the assets I put in this artboard, and then I reuse them in the other different artboards, and I usually link them. The assets are linked. This way, same resource can be reused in the different artboards, and usually um, I use assets from desktop, and um, I start them. Well, it doesn't really matter where I use them, but the resources needs to be. I try to have resource where it's in the in its most um, biggest form. This way, it won't lose the quality in desktop and or any different screen size. For, for what I meant is, like, if the image, let's say I have a hero image here, it's linked to another Photoshop file, and then I can resize it in any artboard and it won't lose its quality. And this is important when the design calls for different art direction, and it uses responsive images using like something like picture tag, src tag with multiple sources. For this, the difference between desktop and let's say smartphone is that obviously I don't have I have to account for hover effects, for the hover functionalities. So for example, on a desktop I have when I hover over carousel, I have the content appears on hover, and there's an effect of a brush behind it. And on mobile version, the content always stays, since there's no hover effect, no mouse. Another feature is that I added is in desktop view. I didn't add icons, and here I added icons just to separate content. And everything needed to flow, like not everything, but some some content needed to be adjusted for mobile column view, so I had um, an arrow moved here, and the animation, this subtle animation that shows to view here. Uh, then there's for this part the stay in loop text. It needed to arc in the mobile view, and in desktop view is straight. For this I used JavaScript uh, to dynamically break every word and then arc it. This is dynamically set, so if this were to be changed on admin by the user, this will also break. And here we have here I have same what was set up in the design view. The functionality of hamburger menu. For original design, I had to animate this effect of the brush stroke. So what I did is I took the original vector piece, and I created its own AI file, and the way I wanted to animate is that I wanted to have animation where it kind of starts and goes around, like there will be steps to this animation. So I will animate one part of the circle, second, third, and for this I decided to have uh, 7 outlines of the vector, and so the idea was, the way I saw it, is to animate first this line, then, well, actually it was first this line, then this, and to have that circle effect. Okay, this might not be in order, but in the final production it was in order. And then what I did is I exported this AI file as an SVG. So this will currently is an SVG animation, and if I were to open this as a text file, this is what I had generated by Illustrator. And what I did is I took this file and I cleaned it, optimized it, and here just made sure it's not responsive, set up width, height. I made it responsive in the CSS, but not in the SVG properties. And what I created is 7 lines for each of them, and here I set up the SVG properties and the animation delays, when they're going to be set up, and all the SVGs, all the SVG paths use, some of them use the same properties. So here I have set up um, styles where the properties are shared, and then I set up animation keyframes for the stroke and for the feel. And here I cleaned up the SVG paths so they will be easier to be readable. On the effect, actually, what happens is I set up um, JavaScript. So when the user hovers, um, well, first of all, opacity is triggered. Um, so this is the main div that controls the animation. And so when I hover, the opacity is triggered. The opacity, um, then the div becomes opaque, and I add classes with JavaScript that start the brush animation. So right here, once I hover, the fill class I add is animating class, and that's what triggers the animation throughout all of these paths and in sequential order. And the good thing about this that I can easily adjust the colors of the paths with the CSS. So the stroke will be adjusted here. For every project, I set up a version control. So for this project, it was a Bitbucket. Some other project, I use GitHub, and from the admin area for this project, I have set up um, content types, content pages artists, and basic pages, news, page type, or post type in WordPress. And for events and exhibitions, I have combined them into one post type. And on the post type, I just I added a custom field where a user can select if it's event or exhibition. The other section where the admin can select, add new options, locations, and depending on what's selected here, this will be displayed. If exhibition is on this side, um, then it will be shown in the exhibition page. The collection will display that. And if it's events, events. And what I mean, they share the same field as this part. So if I were to go to events, they have pretty much the same um, view. So here there might be little differences. So actually there's not really many differences. You still have the details about the event, and same about exhibition. And this project also required to have integration with the Google Maps API, so I have set up keys for that. Uh, so for this project, that's what was required. WordPress, um, no requirement on the theme, so I actually um, this was a theme that I built on top. Uh, my custom functionality from the what was approved by the client designs. And for this particular project, I used this theme, and then I added my own um, child theme content. So this is my custom functions PHP. I created a gulp file that reloaded the content and added a prefixing to my SCSS file. So I had and this is my SAS structure for this project. Was a simple project, so I didn't create a very in-depth file structure, but here's the styles I used for this particular. So I had imported components. Uh, Here imported different components. The underscore SAS partial files, and here's what when I was creating the file, this is what the gulp enabled me to do is so what happens here is forward to where to change, I had uh, the browser sync reload my changes on the fly. For I set up where it looks for any files, CSS, JavaScript, or PHP. Um, and for this site, the original fonts that what client wanted to use were Archer font, and then there was Myriad Bold, Neutra Face Display Bold, and well, it worked for the design. For once I had to put once I had to set up the web project, since these fonts are premium fonts, sometime I run into situation where, let's say, the client has their own font they used before, for example, from their graphic design assets like logo or brochure. While I can use it for design, once it's on the web, I have to find alternative, or I have to copyright this font to be used on the website. For this project, these were premium fonts. They were out of budget to copyright them for website use. So what I did is I found alternate fonts for each of them. For Archer font, I found this font. I usually try to use Google fonts, which served from Google CDN, and they are all optimized by Google, so I don't have to worry about any issues that come with hosting fonts. It's all taken care by Google and their servers. And for Myriad Bold, what I used was PT Sans. I used them in 400 weight and 700, and for Josephine Slab I used 4 weights. And Neutra Face Display I use Josephine Sans, and to correct, I want to correct myself. For Archer I use Josephine Slab, and for Neutra Face Display I use Josephine Sans. When I included these fonts, I only included these weights. So if I were to go on the source, I will have only these fonts included, and that should save me size instead of including the whole font with all the weights. And if I were to test the font, I can see I have Josephine Sans, and the text is Josephine Slab. So these are main 2 fonts I had. And here's my fonts variable in SAS. Usually name them as a primary, secondary, tertiary, and if there's more, I keep adding them. This way, if I were to change this font in the future, I can easily change here, and the naming convention is agnostic. It's not set to one specific font. I tried to use this type of convention not just in variables but in my JavaScript as well.